Hi, and welcome to another Empower Hour. I'm Lee Mitchell, and I am so excited to welcome our guest today, Lindsay Sutherland Boal. And we are going to be discussing the Lindsay's mission, which is to empower alcohol-free living today. Not alcohol living. Let's empower alcohol living. No, we're not going to do that. We're empowering alcohol-free living. I told you I was a little nervous. This is a really special, important interview that I'm doing, and so I told you that I would probably stutter or say something wrong, and there I did it. And so that's okay, because you know what? We're not perfect, and we're here to discuss a topic that's very near and dear to my heart. And I want to just start by telling you how I know Lindsay. So, and then Lindsay's going to introduce herself. And this is a live show, so if you have questions, get them ready for us because we're here to support you. So Lindsay and I know each other because I guess about a month ago, I joined her app, Uncovery, an Uncovery app. And that is an incredible resource that helps to support women specifically who are embarking on alcohol-free living. And I am here to tell you that I am 6 months alcohol free and really finding my power. And this is the Empower Hour. So, what better time to be talking about that than now? So, Lindsay, I'm really looking forward to discussing a wide ranging amount of topics related to women, to supporting people in the workplace who don't drink, because this is a professional live stream. And also, even talking about marketing from the perspective of how alcohol is marketed towards women and social media. There's so many topics. We're probably not going to have a lot of time to dive too deeply into any one topic. We'll be switching from topic to topic. But I can promise you that anyone who's listening, we're going to tell you what we did to empower our journeys. And so at the end of our session together, we will have 3 takeaways, and I'll share some of the resources that I used on my journey. And of course, Lindsay's community, She Walks Canada, as well as the Uncovery app, have been a part of my journey. So, Lindsay, welcome. Why don't you start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and how you went from being an opera singer to becoming the CEO and founder of the Uncovery community and She Walks Canada.
Before we get started, I'll say something actually about my opera career, because you had mentioned, that you felt a little bit in the beginning, and I have to say that one of the best things I have ever done for myself, I learned many things through my operatic studies and onto my career, and it was that every single time I went on stage, it didn't matter how big the house was, how small the house was. I went on stage wearing, a full gown or whatever, but I always wore a pair of nylons that had a run in them. And the reason I did that was so that I could get the imperfection of the performance over with. And what that did is, because sometimes we do have a little bit of nerves. Sometimes we do speak a little bit quickly. Sometimes we don't take a big enough breath, whatever it is. But I learned very early on that if I can already let the unplanned thing happen, which happened to be by running my nylons, then I could just let it go and go have fun. And I keep that very dear to my heart, because we all know that, especially when we're flying live, anything can happen and anything does happen. So we might as well, start on the solid ground of not knowing, as Endo Johnson would say, and start with a run in our nylons or a stutter in our voice, and carry on bravely from there. But to answer your question, yes, I certainly have been a career chameleon, but have landed firmly in my advocacy for women learning to pursue alcohol free living lives after having a problematic relationship. And my two platforms now that I've created to support women in doing that are She Walks Canada, which has a global reach, and the Uncovery App too, which has a global reach, and they offer similar kinds of things, but in different ways to better reflect the spectrum of support required to deal with a significant health issue.
Okay, thank you for that great introduction. And so I'm glad that you brought up Anne. I wanted to figure out a segue into that.
Oh,
So, Anne, the reason why I found you is because Anne had posted about you.
mm,
And that led me to find your community. And Anne, who is the author of Drink, which was a revolutionary book that focused on research about women and drinking and the relationship between alcohol and women's health, as well as their well-being and lots of really interesting information from both a health perspective, storytelling, and Anne's own personal journey. So Anne is a great example of someone who went from being a journalist and author to being a psychotherapist, and she is my therapist. And of course, I learned about you through her. So I feel like in the small business community and the recovery community, it's incredible how people connect you to what you need when you need it. And so I'm really um, honored that my relationship with Anne led me to you. So
yeah.
that's incredible.
Mhm.
So, do you want to share briefly your own personal story, which was why you started your community? So, your own journey.
Yeah. Um, Briefly, I thought I was so unique. I thought I was so different. I thought I was eternally flawed because I had a problematic relationship with alcohol that cost me my operatic career that I loved, that I trained a very long time for, and that I was successful in for a decade. And while I was, never drunk on stage, I was drunk at the parties in between and the networking events, which of course were where alcohol was always featured, because isn't that how we all socialize? Isn't that how we network? Is
Mm.
to have a glass of wine in your hand. That's how we do things. And in my it was wild because I was so unbelievably comfortable in front of 5,000 people that I didn't know. I was extremely uncomfortable in a room of 50 people that maybe some of them I knew. And so I'm not entirely sure what actually led up to my problematic drinking, even though I could probably, if we had more time to dive into it, not live, I might get into that. But I tried 6 times to stop drinking before the seventh time that I was successful. And in all of my years now doing research in this field and in my own personal work, never once have I met a woman with a problematic relationship who got it right the first time by being able to stop drinking. It doesn't work like that. And it's because we have absolutely no idea just how against the grain we are when we make that decision to stop drinking. And it's hard to make it stick because alcohol is a part of our culture. It's a part of the way we live. It's a part of the way we identify. So for me, I certainly, bought into that. And that's the thing. It's the perceived belief that our lives are in any way going to be less than because we quit drinking. If women only knew, men and women only knew that the ultimate life level up is to be present and to not require a device to endure our lives.
Yeah, this is another great segue to share that um, this isn't my first attempt as well. So I was alcohol free for 18 months in starting in 2019. And that's where I first read a message from you
Mhm,
um,
mhm,
on on a forum, and you were looking for some advice. That was
mhm,
your first month into your journey of seventh time or whatever it was,
mhm,
and you were looking for some support, and so we had an exchange, and I was very happy to not be in the position to have to really explain myself to anyone at the time, because at that time it was the pandemic, and no one, by the time that I was ready to come out and tell anybody, there
yeah,
was really not a lot of social situations where I needed to explain myself.
mhm,
And it wasn't until my anniversary on the 18th month that I decided, oh, I had had a lot of therapy. I thought, you know what, I'm ready to maybe just celebrate and see where it goes. And so I had a glass of champagne, and you know didn't really experience any repercussions from that decision for a long time. And it wasn't until um, probably a year in to just starting to reintroduce alcohol into my life that I started to find that some of the problematic behaviors that I had in the past were starting to become evident to me again. And so I made the decision before I really needed to make a decision that it was time to retire my drinking career. And 6 months in now, I haven't looked back. And so the difference that I made this time around is that I tell people,
mhm.
sometimes in advance, sometimes when I'm at a function, that I'm not drinking and that I don't ever intend to drink again. And I say no to a lot of things as well. So I'm sure you can relate to that. And I'm hoping that anyone that listens now or after the fact can take solace in the fact that it sometimes takes several attempts before something feels really right with you to continue that. And so this is my first time publicly coming out to share this, and it's a little nerve-wracking, but at the same time it's so liberating, because I just know with my heart and soul that I will never go back um to the life that I had. Not that there was anything dramatically wrong. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't realize, is that you don't have to hit rock bottom to realize that alcohol isn't serving you. And
This is really important. And it's actually my slogan is that you don't need to hit rock bottom. Rock enough will do. Like,
yeah,
right? Why are we waiting? Because there isn't a woman with a problematic relationship alive who doesn't think about what the rock bottom would be for her. And everybody's rock bottom is different. Some people say someone else has a high rock bottom. Who cares?
yeah,
Every woman has that thing that we either recognize as a real problem, yeah, a real problem, and for me, I remember, like, and it's crazy what we say to each other as we're trying to negotiate our way out of being accountable with the role that alcohol is playing in our lives. I distinctly remember saying that my alcohol consumption wasn't that bad because I hadn't got a DUI. What kind of benchmark is that?
yeah.
What kind of benchmark is that? And why are we placing ourselves in the position to hit it? And so we do not need to hit some kind of rock bottom to decide, hey, this isn't working for me. And on that note, not everybody who has a huge dramatic problematic relationship with alcohol needs to choose or would choose this alcohol-free lifestyle, because it wasn't, I would say, actually probably in the last 2, maybe 3 years now, we now know that no amount of alcohol is safe, and that is out. Like, there's no unseeing that, there's no unhearing that,
Mhm.
but it is fairly recent. And so there's a whole bunch of people, men and women, that are saying, you know what? there's no amount of alcohol that's safe for me. So why am I going to continue to pursue this? But then when we stop drinking, we're like, oh my goodness, we are completely surrounded by alcohol all the time.
Mhm.
How? Not how, but literally how do we navigate social situations? How do we mark the occasions of our lives? How do we not use alcohol as a coping mechanism?
Mhm.
How do we be social? How do we stay married to a partner who still drinks? Like the questions go on and on and on and on. And so I'm offering this, that there is a spectrum of problematic drinking, there's a spectrum of reasons why people want to maybe stop. And it's not because someone necessarily has this terrible problematic relationship. We recognize it's not good. We recognize it definitely does not jive with menopause. We know it doesn't jive with aging. We know it doesn't jive with productivity at work. We know it doesn't jive with healthy sleeping. We know it contributes to what 14 different illnesses in women. Where is the health benefit? And now we know that there isn't one. So why are we continuing on this path? It's part of our culture. It's part of our conditioning. It's part of how it's marketed to us. It's absolutely everywhere. So it can feel so against the grain. But as a collective, a global collective, we're awake. We are listening.
Yes. Yeah, and here's the thing, right? We live in a culture where we have to explain why we don't drink,
Yeah.
which is so weird, right? When you think about it. And I quit on February 20th, and that was a conscious decision that I sat with and thought for several months before I actually stopped, because generally people, when they make a big decision to cut something out of their life, going cold turkey, like having an idea that you want to do something and then cutting it out the next day, generally that could be rather stressful. So it's something that you sit with and you contemplate and you create a plan. And that's what I did, as I created a plan and went forward with the plan. And it definitely was, part of the decision was because those health guidelines came out in January saying that there is no safe amount of alcohol.
Mhm.
So I thought, why even try to negotiate whether I'm having too much, right? And that was the reason why I quit, was that I just didn't want to have to think about it anymore. I didn't want to have to think about whether I was having too much.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's just like I have enough stress and mental health challenges in my life that it just took away my clarity, because it was like a yet another worry or
Mhm.
decision to have to make. And
Right.
so I decided
There's
it wasn't worth it.
there's two things I want to mention here.
Yes,
Um, Out of responsibility, it is never recommended to go cold turkey
exactly.
from alcohol. I just want to talk about that and
Please.
why it is that we have to talk to our GPs before we stop drinking, and the reason is because alcohol can have significantly problematic responses in our bodies once we remove alcohol. And we have absolutely no idea how our bodies are going to respond to not having alcohol in them. We don't know that. And so it is our responsibility to phone our GP up and say, hey, listen, and this, I'm going to tell you the script, because not everybody wants to go to their doctor and say, hey, I'm drinking too much. And by the way, your doctor probably knows that you're cutting what you're saying you're drinking in half. So just be honest and show up and say, hey, listen, I now know that no amount of alcohol is safe. And you know what? I'm drinking too much and I know it. I really need to stop. I'm drinking a bottle and a half of wine a night. I thought I should tell you, is there anything I need to know? And let your doctor have that conversation from there. So we need to recognize that our doctors can help us in many ways. And so allow them to have that conversation with you. There's all kinds of things that your doctor understands about your medical history that you don't. So allow your doctor to help you negotiate that. And so that's one piece. The second piece is around emotional labor. And so you were just talking about, I had to do all this thinking, like, manage my drinking. And what we don't realize when we have a problematic relationship with alcohol is that it has become such a routinized or habitual behavior that we end up doing it without even thinking about it. Like we just know that we stop at the LCBO on the way, or the liquor store on the way home from work, or we open a bottle of wine and drink the whole bottle before we go to bed, or more than that. And then we start having the negotiation. Like this is one of the signature markers of somebody with a problematic relationship is we start to say, okay, so if I don't drink on Tuesday and Thursday, that means that it's like, what? This is another one I used to say to myself, if my resting heart rate is below 64 beats per minute, then I can drink today. What does that even mean? But what I'm saying,
Scientific, Lindsay.
yeah, but what I'm saying is it doesn't matter. Like if you're having these negotiating kinds of discussions, the emotional labor that you are participating in every day is very, very high. It's very high and it's not necessary. And alcohol is not contributing in a positive way. Yet we are unwilling so often to let go because what alcohol does for so many of us is it provides relief. And there is no way many of us women who are so over tapped out are going to take the only relief that we get in our day away. We are not going to do that.
Mm. Wow. I like that you talked about talking to your GP. I think that's important.
Mhm.
And because this is a show for change makers, and I'm hoping that some doctors are listening to this at some point, doctors need to ask the right questions and do it in a judgment-free way. Because I'll be honest with you, my doctor, because I look healthy and I'm, thin and like have good blood pressure and all of the things, he never asked me how much I drank. And so it was really easy to pretend or to just avoid conversations I didn't want to have.
Yeah, and this is a really good point. I'm glad that you brought this up because at every opportunity, I do talk about the importance of talking to your GPs. Um, but I would like to invite any GP out there who doesn't know how to have the conversation, ask me. And what I'm saying is it oftentimes has to do with language. And when we're speaking specifically about women, it is an extremely nuanced conversation and language matters. And so, for example, like Lee, if I was your doctor and I said something to you like, is there alcoholism in your family? Zoom, wall's going to go up, right?
Right.
However, if I were to say something like, um, uh, would you say that you often drink? Is it a part of how you live your life? Is it a part of your lifestyle?
Mhm.
Would you think that's at times you may overdrink? Is so much better than are you an alcoholic? Do you identify with being an alcoholic? Do you think you could be an alcoholic?
Mhm.
Like, and that's the other thing is that the language around this conversation has completely changed. And alcoholism has been replaced with alcohol use disorder. And I'm so grateful for that because so many people have that caricature vision of what an alcoholic is, right? It's first of all a guy, that's the caricature, right? It's a
Mhm.
guy in the street who doesn't contribute to society. This is what people say, right? This is the
Yeah,
narrative is
sure.
that it's a guy in the street who doesn't contribute to society and doesn't care for his family. Okay, so first of all, women don't identify with that. Okay,
Mhm.
but we also there's so many parts of that that are so wrong because we know actually because Ann Dowsett Johnston's predictions came true that she did in Drink, the intimate relationship between women and alcohol that was published in 2013. Her prediction in 2013 was that women would surpass men in problematic drinking, leading to more hospital visits, more emergency room visits, and more alcohol related deaths. And she's right. It's happened. It happened in 2013. Women surpassed men as the leading gender, I guess, of problematic behaviors. And
Mhm.
so when you think about it, so many women still fit into this high functioning, high performing crap, to be totally honest. And so
Mhm.
these are women that are caring for their aging parents. They're caring for their children. They're completely responsible for the emotional labor of their work environment, of their home environment. They're, super mom, super this, super that, and completely drained and exhausted.
Mhm.
Drained and exhausted.
Mhm.
And these women do not identify with not contributing to society, with
Mhm.
not being able to care for their family. In fact, they're caring for freaking everybody. So they're not going to identify with that caricature. So the language has to change. It's
Mhm.
not sober or alcoholic.
Mhm.
It's a problematic behavior that lies on a spectrum that is reflective of the severity of the issue, which means, and this is where I come in, is that there has to be an equal reflection of the supports available to deal with this considerable health issue.
Mhm.
The majority of problematic drinkers out there are somewhere in the gray area. They
Mhm.
aren't, severe cases. They're mild to moderate. They're still functioning on some level. There's still the capacity for choice. And
Mhm.
I'm saying we have got to get to these men and women for me, because that's my community. We
Yeah.
have to get to these people when they're still considered mild to moderate so that they don't get to the worst case scenario and contribute to the $22 million, tax, or was it billion? My goodness, tax problem that we
Mhm.
have as Canadians dealing with substance use disorders.
Mhm.
We have
Yeah.
to talk about this differently. We've
Yeah.
got to use language like over drinking. We've got to use language like alcohol use disorder, someone with alcohol use disorder. It's on a spectrum.
Mhm.
Not everybody is severe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the majority aren't.
Absolutely.
And so there has to be a greater understanding and a greater use of that language, because that's how we open the door. Sure. And this is the other thing. As women, we are smart. We know that no amount of alcohol is safe. We
Mhm.
know what the stats are. We know that it contributes to a variety of different illnesses. We all know that. We also know that we're going back to the LCBO to buy another 2 bottles tonight that we're hoping we're not going to get through.
Mhm. Yep. Yep.
So, yes, we need to know the science. We need to know the facts, but we cannot lead with that. We
Yep.
need to lead with the immediate need, which is support and community, which is what I offer with She Walks Canada and the Uncovery App.
Yes. And just to speak to your app
Mm.
and your meetings, the app is incredible. I joined, like I said, about a month ago, and the step by step, I
Mm.
call it kind of like the Google questions that everybody has,
Mm.
but don't want to ask for the answers. You just have them all laid out for you in a really easy to way and to absorb way. So just like bite-sized bits
Mm.
of advice and guidance and your perspective of your what happened to you as you went through each one of these things, like navigating your marriage after giving up alcohol, your career after
Mm.
alcohol,
Mm.
things like that after you alcohol going alcohol free. So
Mm.
the app is amazing for the step by step guides and templates and resources that you have, in addition to the community.
Mhm.
So I love that you can connect with other women, and this is really important, right? So the first time that I was alcohol free, like I said, I chose to focus on therapy,
Mhm.
and I really kept to myself. And like the majority of the world, we were all isolated because it
Yeah.
was the pandemic. But this time, I'm really trying to make new friends and to participate in the community and support others as well as they're going through their journeys. And so I really want to be an advocate and an ally for what you're doing. And so I applaud you for this incredible community. And you mentioned yesterday that you started it with your dad, at least the She Walks Canada. And maybe you can talk a little bit about the walk part of it, because
Yeah.
that's really fascinating story.
Yeah. So when I got sober this seventh time that I tried and it stuck, I did two things differently. I walked the walk and talked the talk.
Mhm.
And so She Walks Canada is the reflection of what worked for me in my journey to overcome over drinking. And the very first day I had stopped drinking, I went for a walk, and I walked for about 1 kilometer. And of course, that's not a very long distance, but to me, it was significant because it was the first time that I could remember that I did something to benefit myself that was a healthy thing. And so the longer I was sober, the longer I could walk.
Mhm.
And before too long, I was walking 10 kilometers every day. And that became an absolute mantra in my life. What am I walking away from? What am I walking towards? What do I need to walk around? What do I need to walk over? What do I need to leave behind? Like it just became such a thing, right? And then at the same time, I was starting to find women who were unknown to me, who were weathering the same storm. And so I found great community and connection in women I didn't need to justify my past experience with. And I didn't need to explain myself because I was in the company of women who, at the base level, totally got what I was saying. Yes, we all had unique experiences, but our themes were the same, and they always are. And so it was the combination of talking about my experience and walking through my own path that allowed me to um, step into my role is what's now become, an advocate and certainly a leader in the alcohol-free space.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I did start it with my dad. And if it wasn't for my dad, I would have walked She Walks Canada into a ditch. There's, there's because I've always been like that. I'm a born actor and theater person, right? Like I see the big picture things, and I am not an in the weeds kind of girl. Like I'm just not. I don't mind the hard work. I like the hard work, but there's so many details in that are just not where I thrive. But my dad is excellent at risk management, at business management, at managing all kinds of things I have zero expertise in. And so I said to him, "Hey, Dad, can I ask you a question?" That's how it started. But I was trying to figure out how to do She Walks, and this is before we launched. Um, and that question turned into 3 years of service for my dad. And we started She Walks Canada as two people, me and my dad, who would walk along with me, and the support of my mom as well. And that's turned into 17,000 women. And
Mm.
my dad's retiring this year, and we have a new woman stepping into his shoes.
Yes, who I is a meeting leader, and do you want to say her name?
So no, I do not, because she's not a meeting leader.
Oh,
She's a member. No, that's fine. She's a member
okay.
of our community,
Uh,
and I respect the fact that I will allow her to make that decision about when she
of
wants to.
course. Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine.
My signals crossed on who it was. Okay. Yeah. So you also have meetings. So there's the walks, and then there's also
Yeah.
meetings.
Oh, right. So
Let's
you're
talk
right.
about meetings as well, because I've found tremendous support in your meetings.
Yeah. I should also mention about the walks because you asked me to talk about that. So the first year we launched was 2022. So it's in the middle of COVID, right? And the month we decided to do it was January. January 24th is my sober date. And so it's a meaningful date for me, obviously, right?
Mhm.
And so in 2022, it was my second sober anniversary. That was our scheduled launch date. And the weeks leading up to that, our premier had announced, "Oh, sorry, parents, this is like January 1st. Kids won't be going back to school like we told you they would because there's been another outbreak." So, of course, every mother in the world went, "What?" you know. And then there was the truck convoy that went across Canada. A week later, Russia invades Ukraine, and 3 days later, I was scheduled to launch She Walks Canada. And I said to Gord, my dad, I said, "What woman in her right mind is going to choose this moment to stop drinking?" And like he said, "Well, do you think it's the right time?" And I said, "It's the only time." Because as we know, nobody does this, right. And I say that in quotes because whatever, but
Yeah.
it takes time to plant the seeds. It takes time to be sober curious. It takes time to do all those things. So we had planned to walk as a collective because nobody could see each other. So I said, okay, everybody has to log their kilometers from wherever they are. And as a collective team, we will walk the distance of walking across Canada, 7,000 kilometers. And I'm like, how the heck are we going to do this in 7 months? Like, we're a totally new entity. All this other stuff is going on. This is going to be a disaster. Anyways, and so in 3 months, we ended up walking across Canada, or 7 months, we walked across Canada 3 times. And we helped 600 women in their journeys to overcome over drinking. And so we continued with the support meetings that happen every week and multiple times per week. And in our 2023 initiative, still a little bit iffy on COVID, we said, what are we going to do this year? And I said, well, why don't we just go, I don't know, twice the distance and half the time? Like, sure, great. So we planned to go around the globe, circumnavigate the globe, 40,000 kilometers. But now we had grown. And so we said, okay, well, let's keep it virtual. Everybody's going to log their kilometers from wherever they are. And we're going to attempt to walk around the globe virtually in 3 months. And sure enough, in 94 days, we met that goal. And we had helped 3,000 women. And so leading into this year, Gord, he said, Lindsay, we're ready to go in person. And I cried because I'm like, oh my God. And our goal, I said to myself as a success measure, I would love to see 50 walks across North America, because we have quite a large American participation. I'd love to see 50 walks across North America in our allotted 100 days, and our walks happen on Sundays. And lo and behold, in that 17 weeks, we had 251 walks across North America, led by 38 walk leaders in 38 different communities. And now we've helped over 16,000 women.
Well, I got to say, walking is a huge part of my mental health.
Yeah.
It's where my creativity for solving problems comes out. It's a great way to connect with others.
Yeah.
So I applaud you for and also moving, like just the act of moving and being in nature. It's so important.
Yeah.
In the journey.
It is.
So thank you
Yeah.
for all you do.
Yeah.
So tell me about what is the best advice that you have for leaders to support their teams or themselves when it comes to creating a supportive environment for someone who doesn't consume alcohol in workplaces, entrepreneurship, whatnot?
Sure. So this is a great question, and more needs to be done. There's a lot more that needs to be done in a lot of different aspects. But I hear so many people in our community, in our coaching calls, talking about, well, it's so hard for me to quit drinking because of my job, because of my work. And my response to that is, that's your perception of your job. But at the same time, I'm going to say it is the social responsibility of employers to provide, for example, networking or conference type of environments that include alcohol-free drinks, because there are a bunch of people who don't drink, whether they have a problematic relationship or they're particularly focused on being present all the time. Yet if there is a non-alcoholic option available, it's like a Diet Coke or a water. And so visually, somebody who's choosing not to have alcohol is given, like a kiddie's, plastic cup instead of a wine glass. Like, we really need to rethink how non-alcoholic drinks and alcoholic drinks are presented in work environments. There's a lot of people who would prefer to be 100% present and on in a networking opportunity so that they can talk to who they want to talk to, but get out of there. Let's go and do what we want to do, meet the people we want to meet, be present, do all the things, but be able to go home. I don't want to sit there and drink all night. Like, you know what I mean? There has to be options for people who don't drink alcohol to have the exact same experience as those who do drink alcohol. And especially since we know that no amount of alcohol is safe, it's irresponsible for there not to be any appropriate non-alcoholic drinks at a business event.
Right. So it's like you said, so you don't feel like a toddler. And I've been there. Like I said, I've really made a conscious decision to not isolate myself and get out there and do things. I do say no to a lot more if I feel that it's going to be too much for me. And because, to be honest with you, when you're at a party and if everybody's, being overserved, then the conversations start to get a little bit
Yeah, it's sloppy. It's
Sloppy,
sloppy.
right? And I've been there. I've been the sloppy one at
Yeah.
events, where I might repeat myself or, that sort of thing. So,
But more than that, more
mhm,
than that. I was at a lunch, at the time before I went into this space. I had stopped drinking, but I was newly sober,
mhm,
and I was, vice president of relationship development for a construction company. And it was my job to go and meet with PMs and do that kind of business relationship development so that the company I was working for could gain new relationships. And I went out for lunch with a PM of a major firm, and I had worked hard to get this meeting, and it was during the COVID restrictions where you could sit outside on a patio, but it was too cold, so they had the heaters on. But that was the only thing that was available, right? And I went and I ordered a latte at lunchtime, and the person I was meeting with said, "You're not going to drink?" And it was a man and me. And I said, "No, I'm not. It's freezing." I didn't mention anything about being sober. I said, and it really was freezing. And he
yeah.
said, "Well, I'm not going to do business with somebody I can't drink with."
I just-
He was dead serious. And so I got up and I walked out.
Power
And
to
then I had to go back to my boss and say, "This is what happened." And I wasn't worried about my relationship with my boss, but what? And that is not uncommon.
yeah,
And so there has to be a dialogue in the work environment that we can't have that kind of talk anymore. Like, it is not safe. It is not safe for women, particularly, to drink alcohol. So you can't have a narrative of, "I'm not going to do business with somebody who doesn't drink." That
yeah.
is irresponsible, and it is not uncommon.
Well, I mean, the, I admit that back in the day that I had more of a tendency to want to hang out with my friends that like to party
Oh, sure.
than those that were, alcohol free, or because I feel like we're reflecting when someone's behavior is different than yours, you feel more judged.
Yes.
And so your tendency is to want to surround yourself with people who are doing the same thing that you're doing.
Mhm.
And so I think that is a common feeling amongst people who drink, is that they probably prefer to be around those that are drinking with them because then it normalizes their behavior.
Well, that's exactly what it is. And when we choose not to drink, as people who don't drink,
Mhm.
we are not, and I'm going to total blank statement this, but I can't imagine anybody disagreeing with me because we have this conversation all the time.
Mhm.
If I don't drink, I am absolutely not judging anybody who does. I
No.
am so focused on just, me. It's my choice. It's my experience. It's my lifestyle. And
Mhm.
I'm not going to preach that. I'm not gonna, you would think that somebody like me would, and I don't.
Yeah.
Just and I'm quite common in that I have the same experience as many, many, many most people. In fact, I've never met anybody else who doesn't drink who is preachy. We aren't projecting. We are choosing that for ourselves. And if
Mhm.
somebody else chooses to take that as a judgment just because we aren't having the 12% liquor in our cup, then like that just has nothing to do with us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as we navigate it, I mean, and I'm still new to navigating it in a
Mhm,
social way. I allow myself to I think what I've learned about myself through this journey of adulthood is that I need to fill myself up by being alone and also be inspired and enjoy being around people. But it is a definite 50-50. I can be with people 50% of the time, and 50% of the time I have to fill myself up by reading and doing the things that I love to do. And a lot of those activities are done solo. And I felt very guilty about that for a long time that I need that amount of alone time to fill my cup up. And I'm 50 now, so I'm 51 actually. And I'm at that stage in my life where I'm okay with people not agreeing with how I live my life. It's my life to live, and I'm going to make the choices that are best for me. And that's okay. And if it's not other people's cup of tea, then I'm cool with that. It's okay. There's a lot of people in the world. So
Mhm.
there's
But
some
that's a wonderful reflection, because one of the common themes of women who are pursuing alcohol-free living is that there is a much greater need for rejuvenation, um, and space, not distance, but
Mhm,
just space for us to think, for us to feel. It's like we
mhm,
have to give ourselves permission to not be everybody else's, emergency fire hydrant. Like, we are not here to spend our entire lives servicing other people while we run on empty.
mhm,
And so many of us are like deer in the headlights trying to figure out how we satisfy our own needs to be healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy, spiritually, physically, emotionally, financially, the whole thing. Like,
mhm,
what is it that we require? And it feels totally out of alignment because we have been conditioned to believe that it's everybody else first.
mhm,
When we place ourselves first and we understand that not only that we should and all that, but that we get to, and that we need to, and that what we want out of our lives requires us to.
mhm,
And that's what we're going to do. And
mhm,
it's not that we forget about everybody else. It's not that. It's just that we learn what boundaries are. I remember I was 18 months sober. I was 48 or 47 or whatever I was. And I didn't know what a boundary was. All these women were talking about boundaries. I had no idea what they were talking about. None. I didn't realize that I could choose how people were going to treat me. They were
mhm,
going to treat me one way once, but they sure weren't going to do that again if I didn't like it. And I had the power to stop, like I did with that fellow who told me that I'm not going to do so business. Somebody doesn't drink. Fine, bye. Like, fine. I never would. I got up and left. I never would have done that before because I didn't think that. I thought that I had to endure that. And that's the thing, is when we step into alcohol-free living, we go from enduring our lives to enjoying our lives. And it requires us to say, no, thank you. This is how I want to experience my life. And I know that there's going to be a bunch of people out there, likely men, sorry about this, but it's true, that
mhm.
are saying, well, of course you live like that. I'm going to tell you, the majority of women are going to say, for the first time.
Mm. Wow. Yes. Whew. So we're getting to the time where we wrap things up with sharing 3 power moves, empowering moves. And in this particular case, because this episode is so near and dear to me, I'm going to share my best advice as well. So let's start with yours.
Walk the walk and talk the talk. I don't know, I think it's like 82 or 86% of women who successfully navigate towards alcohol-free living have a community. And now we know that the majority of women are this 80%. You're going to find somebody like you in the community. I mean, you see it. It's quite a diversity in the community of industry, of age, of ability, of culture, of ethnicity. Like, it's everything. And so that would be my first thing is show up, start talking, and then you'll see just how common you are. We all think we're so unique. And there's a blessing to realize at times we're garden variety. I like being just a sunflower in the garden. So that's one thing, is the power move is to start talking about it. The second thing is to be able to say that this isn't serving me and I'm going to choose something different. And sure, maybe sober curious for a little while, trying to figure out what that means. But that's amazing. Good for you. High five. And then the third power move. Oh God, I remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the day that I knew that I had reached alcohol free living. And it was the day that I understood without a shadow of a doubt that I had complete freedom in myself, in how I felt about myself, in everything that I regretted doing before and all that crap. I was now in a place of freedom that I had
Mm,
never been in before.
mhm.
And freedom uh, is the ultimate power, I think, power move that one can create for themselves. So it's talking it out, walking it out, calling it what it is, giving it to yourself. So get in the app and get in She Walks, get in the app. Yeah.
Mm, yes. It's so cool that, a lot of times when I interview people, I don't know them very well. Not to say that I know, it's not like we're best friends or anything, but we're slowly getting to know each other. But I have experienced what you have to offer. So that is a pretty cool position to be in. And I wasn't, up until this morning, I wasn't even going to reveal any of this, but I just, right? Like I told you that I, you and I were talking back and forth about whether or not I, you know, should do this, because some people think that revealing these intimate details of your life, people are going to judge you professionally, personally. And those are consequences I'm willing to potentially accept, because at this point in my life, I need to present the real me. And that means showing up and having the courage to say, hey, I'm living the same, I've had the same experiences as you and people like you and Anne and um, many others inspire me every single day to have the courage to share my story with the world. And I'm okay with being judged, because I think that if I can help one person, it's worth it. And I'm hoping that anyone who listens to this feels comfortable to reach out privately, to you or to me. And so my three power moves, are: number one, I think that you can do this, but you can't do it alone.
Mm,
I think that's the thing that I learned from the first attempt, was that I did do it with therapy, but I didn't do it with a community.
mm,
Um, and this time around, I will have the community a part of my journey forever, because it's not like your mental health challenges just instantly disappear, once you stop, you pursue alcohol free living. You still have to deal with life stressors, and the best way forward from my perspective is outing yourself. And here's why: number one, what I've learned is that if I didn't tell people, then they wouldn't tell me, right?
mm,
And so this summer, being up at the cottage, I was super stressed and nervous about having to navigate being in cottage country and beach life with not, and feeling like I didn't belong. But turns out that there were people who were in the exact same position that I was in. And I don't know if I would have known that had I not, had the courage to say, no, I'm not drinking. And then that gave them the opportunity to share their story, or say me too.
mhm,
And so that has been super powerful. So I feel less alone. I'm shame free, and I'm really happy. So that's number one, is don't do it alone. Number two is join a, I mean, I guess these are sort of the same. Join a community. That helps, right? Because a formal program in the sense of reoccurring meetings really helps. So the fact that I can join other women who are navigating the same challenges, and have the same goal of living alcohol free, I can do that with the support of your amazing leaders.
Mm.
So so you have meetings on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays,
Yeah.
right?
So Tuesday night is led by Jillian Laudano. Wednesdays are led by Chelsea Powell, and Thursdays are led by Julie Kirschke. And sometimes I'm in there on Thursdays as well. But yeah.
Exactly. Okay. So there's that. And so join some form of formal program to hold you accountable and to get the support that you need, because you can't rely on the people that are in your life. Like, it's great if the people in your life support you, but they may not. But even if they do, they can't be your everything. And number three, um, is learn to say no to what isn't serving you. So, and that was a really, and I think that's a really difficult thing for women, especially to
Yeah.
navigate, because we're people pleasers. We have to be all things for all people, and it's exhausting, and it's
Mhm.
often what leads us to overdrink. So, get comfortable with saying no and knowing what your boundaries are and learning how to speak those boundaries to the people that are in your life. So those are my three power moves. So I hope that they help you. And yeah, how can we reach out to you, Lindsay? And is there anything else that you want to share before we wrap up this interview?
Best way to connect with me is through the app, actually, at the uncoveryapp.com. Right now, we have a 7-day free trial. So you can get in there for
Perfect.
free, check it out. And when I was asked, what do you want to offer for free? And I said, absolutely everything. So the entire app is available. Whatever conversations we have going on, I offer free coaching in there. Not free, but as part of your subscription,
Mhm.
coaching in there. So that is absolutely the best way to connect with me, because that's where I am on my work hours. Um, you can find my coaching community through the Uncovery community, which is also at She Walks Canada. And you can find me on Instagram and through my website on both of those.
Well,
Final
congratulations.
words. Did you say what are my final words?
Yeah, final
Um,
words.
uh, the magic of overcoming overdrinking reveals itself over time. And it is a process that requires us to lean in. And those that are brave, and those that have the courage to say, I'm worth more, I want more. And over time, we learn that we are more than we ever thought we could be, to ourselves, to our community, to the people around us. We wonder, why did we ever wait so long? But we quickly realize, because we all get sober at the time we're meant to, whatever that is. And as
Mhm.
Ann Dowsett Johnson would say, it doesn't matter if you're 22 or 62. There's lots of runway. And so why wait to live the life you came here to live when you can do it today?
Yes, so that's my fourth suggestion is check out the work of Ann Dowsett Johnson, because she's incredible. She's on Substack, and her book Drink is available in bookstores, and she's actually working on another book right now too, I believe. And she has a memoir writing program that you can check out as well. So shout out to Anne. And
Mhm.
shout out to you, Lindsay. You are a freaking rock star. I adore you. And I can't wait to actually meet you one day in person. I hope that day will come. Maybe on a walk or on our boards,
Yeah.
right? Our,
Yes, paddleboard. Yes, yes.
yes, yes, our paddle
Mhm.
boards. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's been great. Thank you so much for making the time to have this incredibly important conversation. And I hope that anyone listening reaches out to us. We're here to support you on your journey, or on the journey of someone else. If you want advice to support someone else, I'm sure we can help with that as well. So we'll wrap up, and Changemakers, we'll see you next Thursday, 2 p.m. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.